Congratulations! If you're watching this video, then you've likely beat Baldurs Gate 3. If you didn't, go back and finish it. You have to finish your greens before you can have your dessert. Those of you still around that did manage to finish the game, let's talk about my top 8 recommendations of games that you should play next. This list should follow with the most similar games moving to the more obscure, but still enjoyable titles to get lost in. So let's get into it. First up is the obvious answer, Divinity Original Sin 2. Now you may want to start back at their first game in the series, but I strongly urge against that. The first game has no quest markers, no voice acting, and for the most part, it's a rough translation of older CRPG games to a newer market. Although the stories are separate, so there's no real need to play the first, it's still a great game in its own right, but the second one is clearly where Baldurs Gate comes from. While it lacks in cutscenes, the story locations and romanceable companions will make you feel right at home. It really takes the mechanics of D&D and adds to systems that would be too difficult to track on a tabletop game, but that are easy to understand and use, like every character having a magic armor and physical armor on top of their health bar, promoting team damage diversity and allowing some pretty fun combos, such as turning an enemy into a chicken, rupturing their tendons so as they run around and they bleed everywhere, or creating a rainstorm and electrocuting everyone inside of it. It also has the teleporting alligator fight, so if you enjoyed Baldur's Gate and you're willing to play a rougher version of it, enjoy Divinity Original Sin 2. Honestly, I could make a whole video about the next game, but I'll keep it brief because nobody wants to listen to that. If you want a game where you start as a nobody and slowly work your way out of the dirt, then Kenshi is your game. Now this is not a fantasy game. Instead, it's a post-apocalypse game set on a moon far, far away. If you're more interested in a party-based role-playing game where you take the initiative in creating your own story, then this is that game. Now, if you enjoyed level 12 gameplay, killing entire hordes of enemies with magics unrivaled, then give Kenshi a pass for now. But if that survival horror feeling of wandering around Act 1 with nothing but your clothes and a staff speaks to you more, then eat your heart out, because in Kenshi, you can be a small band of mercenaries, a lone ronin in search of old tech, a slave to a religious order, or growing drugs deep in the swamp. This game is a live sandbox to play in, not a high fantasy storyline with deep characters and endings. However, when you've been heading to town for the last 10 minutes and a beak thing gets sight of you and your party and starts beelining it to you, you'll feel things that you've never felt in a game before. I promise, it's terrifying. So Kenshi is more up the alley of people who enjoyed the Fallout games and are willing to put in some time to learn about this punishing world. It can also be played as more of an RTS if you're willing to grind out for a base. Next is Dragon's Dogma. Now I almost want to tell you to hold off till March 22nd to play the new one releasing, however the original can still be fun. If you can get past some of its dated features such as its graphics and various little mechanics in the game, you can have a fun time traveling the world and fighting classic D&D monsters. Its story is far less grand, but still encompasses a dragon and a need to fight fantastical baddies. You and a party of 4 will travel the world with D&D archetypal classes, looting ruins, fighting bandits, and the like. This game does feature one of my favorite mechanics in any game, and that's mounting a monster to deal damage. It's cool in Breath of the Wild, it's cool in Monster Hunter, and I'll always enjoy it. It has a bit of startup fatigue till you reach your first city, and really sets you off to go to wander the world, but if you can get there, I think you'll have a good time. Now, if battling wasn't your cup of tea, just a means to an end, then look at Disco Elesium for a change of pace. You play a detective after an extremely destructive bender. Instead of a large cast of supporting characters, you're going to be fighting your inner demons to solve this case. Its writing's on a par with Baldur's Gate, while it does lack some of the action elements. But seriously, you can enjoy arriving at a lot of the game's game over screens. Seriously, at one point I had a heart attack because my chair was a little too uncomfy. At the risk of spoiling the game, I won't say any more, but if listening to the narrator of Baldur's Gate was fun, just wait until you hear some of these inner machinations get going. I'm gonna make this next game quick, but if you've not played Skyrim or Oblivion, they can be a fun, if not great time. Most anyone who would find Baldur's Gate interesting has surely seen Skyrim before, but in the case you missed one of the 1,000 re-releases of the game, then let me just tell you that Lord of the Rings cemented the way we look at fantasy books and movies. Skyrim cemented the way we should look and feel about those games. So do yourself a favor and play Skyrim, and honestly, if you haven't played it in a while, then slap on some mods and try just not to do a stealth archer playthrough. Now here's where I'm going to step out of games I think other people would recommend and throw in some personal ones I think you all might enjoy but are still very popular. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a unique game where you take on the place of protagonist Ichiban Kasuga, an avid enjoyer of the Dragon Quest games and our unlikely Yakuza member. In this game, you'll take on some of the most unique side quests in gaming. Don't believe me? Have a look at these 4 men, alright? You're seeing them? Now tell me which of them is peeing into the river. Can't tell? Well, that's what you're going to be having to do in the side quest Golden Opportunities. These silly side quests take place while our hero creates a band of fellow adventurers to help him reunite with the man who nearly killed him. These side characters are as in-depth as any Baldur's Gate companion, though less romanceable. Strengthen your bonds with your friends, battle homeless men, corrupt cops, and gang members as you right the many wrongs of a Jincho. I love the Yakuza series, personally, and I think if you want another 40+ hour game, not to mention all the mini games that you can do on top of the side quests. Tagging on to the many of the same themes as Yakuza is the more well-known Persona series. The newer re-release with extra features, Persona 5 Royale, acts as a good start to the series if you've never played one. This game feels like Scooby-Doo's Mystery Gang became superheroes as they juggle exam week and conquer self-esteem issues. In all seriousness, this is a beloved game series by many. Joker even made it into Super Smash Bros. So if Yakuza wasn't your style and you'd like a more abstract, fun art style with tons of characters to meet and unique dungeons to explore, then look to Persona 5. I focus on a lot of games that allow you to roleplay, but maybe you were there for the combat. If so, squad-based shooter XCOM 2 might scratch that itch. You're the commander of an alien resistance trying to free the world, take on missions and fight your way across different maps and levels, securing different objectives till you can save the world from its new alien overlords. Your squad members, however, are not as omnipotent as you. While you guide them through their mission, a well-placed grenade, an out-of-place soldier, or a surprise attack can spell the end for them. Unlike Baldur's Gate, when that timer hits 0, they are dead. No withers can bring them back. I think this adds to the intensity of the game, and I hope some of you enjoy that as well. If you enjoyed being an unlikely hero, traveling through a world that you know nothing about, then maybe take on a game like Dark Souls 3. The Elden Ring's a great game, I think even better than Dark Souls 3, but if you want a more linear experience and an intro to the Souls series, Dark Souls 3 gives you a good headway so you can go backwards and play Dark Souls 2 and 1, but also leaves you available to go play their newer title, Elden Ring. It's super fun collecting gear, defeating bosses, and challenging yourself as you try to get good. If you were like the board game side of things, maybe try out Gloomhaven. It's also a real physical board game, but exists on Steam and other platforms. It's a rather difficult squad-based game where you're going to go through and complete different missions, unlock new areas, hire things, and complete goals. Kind of an interesting mechanic is that you, as a member of this mercenary group, will eventually complete your goal, and that's when your adventure retires, and you'll take on a new one with new abilities and continue forward. And my last honorable mention, you can comment any extra ones you have down below, but that is, of course, just play Dungeons & Dragons.